The hearing room on Capitol Hill was packed to capacity, with cameras actively recording every detail. Nancy Mace, the Republican representing South Carolina, was positioned over her microphone with a confident expression, prepared to initiate her plan. For the preceding 2 minutes, she had been ridiculing Jasmine Crockett, the outspoken Democrat from Texas. Mace labeled her as all talk with no meaningful action, even suggesting that Crockett belonged on TikTok rather than in Congress. The atmosphere within the room was distinctly fraught with tension. A handful of Republicans chuckled quietly, while the Democrats appeared visibly uncomfortable in their seats. However, Jasmine Crockett maintained complete composure, remaining calm, steady, and observant throughout. Her impeccably styled hair caught the light under the bright overhead illumination as she waited patiently. She was neither intimidated nor visibly angry about the comments. Instead, she was entirely focused on the situation at hand. The events of the following minute would do far more than merely silence Nancy Mace. The response would rapidly dominate social media discussions across the internet. Jasmine's reply was incisive, intentional, and executed with absolute precision. So effective was her response that even some Republican colleagues would later acknowledge privately that Mace had blundered directly into a strategic snare. Before we reveal the specifics of that intense moment within the hearing room, please share your viewing location in the comments and remember to subscribe. What you are about to observe is a masterclass in political strategy and execution. The antagonist, Nancy Mace. Nancy Mace is a 47-year-old Republican congresswoman serving South Carolina's 1st congressional district. Having grown up as a military dependent, she achieved historical significance in 1999 as the Citadel's initial female graduate from the Corps of Cadets. This achievement established her as a pioneer, and she has since cultivated a public image defined by being bold, outspoken, and unapologetically direct. Mace projects an image as a moderate Republican willing to engage in bipartisan cooperation. However, in recent years, particularly as she has aligned herself more closely with the MAGA movement, her public perception has undergone a shift. She is now recognized for her caustic remarks, confrontational style, and eagerness to participate in political disputes. Mace maintains a significant presence on social media platforms, is adept at creating sound bites, and rarely avoids direct conflict. On this specific day, she arrived at the hearing possessing considerable confidence and preparation. Her primary talking points were thoroughly practiced, her social media support team was poised for action, and she felt certain that she was about to achieve easy political advantages. She regarded Jasmine Crockett as an uncomplicated adversary, a freshman Democrat she presumed possessed more style than intellectual depth. The protagonist, Jasmine Crockett. Jasmine Crockett, age 43, is a civil rights attorney who transitioned into a role as a congresswoman representing Texas's 30th district. She is an alumna of Rhodes College and the University of Houston Law Center. Before joining the ranks of Congress in 2023, she established a formidable legal career, representing individuals without a voice and challenging influential figures in a court of law. Crockett is not merely highly intelligent, she is exceptionally strategic in her approach. She excels at analyzing a room, maintaining personal composure, and constructing her arguments with meticulous precision. Her professional background as a trial lawyer provided her with the skills to manage challenging witnesses, aggressive adversaries, and skeptical members of the judiciary. Early in her legal career, she grasped the concept that achieving victory is not contingent upon being the loudest, but rather upon being the smartest individual in the room. Crockett is a representative of a new generation of Black women serving in Congress. She stands alongside prominent figures such as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ayanna Pressley, and Ilhan Omar. These women collectively refuse to be intimidated into silence. They effectively utilize their public platforms, fearlessly expose perceived hypocrisy, and challenge the established norms of traditional political conversation. The setting, a House Oversight Committee hearing. The hearing was technically focused on government accountability and the oversight of spending practices. However, similar to many contemporary congressional sessions, it rapidly devolved into a display of political theater. Members of the committee were not present to engage in substantive policy debate. Instead, their objectives were to generate viral content, achieve partisan advantages, and appeal directly to their respective political bases. The room was vibrant with intense energy and activity. Staff members, reporters, and a multitude of cameras occupied every available corner of the space. C-SPAN was broadcasting the entire event live to a national audience. Every major news organization was represented at the proceeding. Social media teams from both political parties were closely observing the hearing, prepared to publish significant video segments within mere seconds of their occurrence. The stakes. This confrontation represented something far more significant than a routine disagreement between two female members of Congress. It involved fundamental questions regarding respect, representation, and the dynamics of political power. Nancy Mace's objective was to publicly demean Jasmine Crockett. Her goal was to characterize the Texas Democrat as both inexperienced and fundamentally unqualified for her position. Should Mace succeed in this endeavor, it would bolster the perception that young progressive Democrats, especially women of color, were ill-suited for roles of leadership. For Jasmine Crockett, however, this specific moment possessed a much more profound significance. She was not merely engaging in personal defense. Crockett was taking a stand on behalf of every woman, every person of color, and every individual who had ever faced dismissal or underestimation based on their background, appearance, or youth. This represented her distinct opportunity to demonstrate that intelligence, preparation, and composure would invariably triumph over arrogance and superficial showmanship. The palpable tension within the hearing room was undeniable. The American public was observing the event closely, waiting intently to see which of the two women would ultimately prevail. Round 1, Mace's opening salvo. The atmosphere in the room grew distinctly heavy even before Representative Jasmine Crockett uttered her first word. Nancy Mace had been allotted time specifically to question a witness regarding government spending practices. Instead of focusing on the topic, she seized the chance to target her Democratic colleagues, focusing specifically on Jasmine Crockett. "You know what I find interesting," Mace commenced, her speaking voice heavily imbued with condescension. "Certain members of this committee dedicate more effort to social media than actually reviewing the legislation they vote upon. They seem far more concerned with their public image and online following than with performing the substantive work of Congress." She did not explicitly state Jasmine's name, yet every person present understood precisely who was the target of her remarks. The camera feed immediately transitioned to Crockett, who was seated calmly with her hands folded and an inscrutable expression. She offered no reaction whatsoever, at least not yet. Mace relentlessly continued her critique. For some individuals, it is entirely a performance focused on the viral clip or the next Instagram post. But when the situation requires showing up and executing the demanding tasks, there is only silence. A small number of Republicans chuckled in response to her comments. Mace was directing her performance toward her supportive audience, and they appeared to be enjoying the spectacle. She adjusted herself back in her chair, appearing distinctly gratified with her performance up to that point. Round 2, the direct assault. Mace had not yet completed her presentation. During her second allotted round of questioning, she advanced her attack significantly. This time, she directly confronted Jasmine by calling her out by name. "Representative Crockett," Mace stated with marked sharpness, "you have been serving in Congress for approximately a year and a half? During that period, what precise achievements have you secured other than managing to get your name featured in the headlines?" Jasmine lifted her gaze, remaining impeccably composed, and began to formulate a response. However, Mace aggressively interrupted her. "No, in all seriousness," Mace pressed relentlessly, "because from my perspective, it appears that you are all talk with no meaningful results. You present yourself at these hearings in your designer attire and with flawlessly styled hair. But when the situation demands actual legislative work and policy contributions, where exactly are you?" The entire hearing room descended into a profound and absolute silence. The Democrats appeared utterly stunned by the flagrant show of disrespect. Even a few Republican members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Criticizing an opponent's legislative record was standard practice, but attacking their personal appearance and questioning their fundamental right to be present was entirely different. Jasmine remained completely motionless, offering no physical reaction. Her jaw was visibly tight and her eyes were rigidly locked forward. She made no attempt to interrupt. Crockett permitted Mace to finish her remarks because she held knowledge that Mace entirely lacked. The longer Mace continued speaking, the progressively deeper the metaphorical hole she was excavating for herself. Round 3, the setup. The committee chairman attempted to reestablish order, reminding members to confine their comments strictly to the topic at hand. However, those efforts were futile. The personal confrontation had already solidified as the primary headline of the session. Nancy Mace wore an expression of complete satisfaction, firmly believing she had secured a public victory. In her estimation, she had embarrassed Crockett on live camera, questioned her fundamental competence, and made her appear utterly out of place in the congressional environment. Her staff members were in all likelihood already preparing the video segment for dissemination on social media platforms. Then it became Jasmine Crockett's turn to speak. The chairman formally recognized her and she calmly made the necessary adjustments to her microphone. The hearing room plunged into an immediate and absolute silence. It was quiet enough that the subtle hum of the air conditioning system became audible. "Thank you, Mr. Chairman," she commenced, her speaking voice emerging in an even and composed register. "I want to address the remarks just made by Representative Mace, as it is crucial to accurately set the record straight." Mace rolled her eyes, fully anticipating a defensive reaction, perhaps involving tears or an emotional outburst. She expected something that would definitively prove the point she had just attempted to make. However, what she received instead was a measured, purely factual dismantling of her entire argument. "Representative Mace just thought it appropriate to question my qualifications and level of commitment," Jasmine continued. "So let us thoroughly review my actual record, since it appears certain members have neglected to perform their basic research." She opened an organized folder, not doing so for theatrical effect, but because she possessed the actual documentation to back her claims. "In my initial year serving in Congress, I co-sponsored 47 individual pieces of legislation. 12 of those bills were focused on the critical area of criminal justice reform. This is a domain where I possess over a decade of first-hand experience working as a civil rights attorney. 6 of these pieces of legislation address the vital issue of healthcare access within underserved communities. Additionally, 8 bills were specifically targeted at addressing economic inequality and fostering workforce development." Subsequently, she directed her gaze and addressed Mace directly. "How many pieces of legislation have you co-sponsored during this current legislative session, Representative Mace?" Mace parted her lips to offer a verbal response. However, Jasmine relentlessly continued her questioning before Mace could speak. "Do not be concerned. I have personally verified the information. According to the official congressional record, you have co-sponsored 31 bills. Consequently, I am entirely unsure where your specific criticism regarding my level of productivity originates." A distinct murmur of reaction spread throughout the entire hearing room. Democrats audibly straightened themselves within their seats, while reporters positioned in the back section began typing furiously on their keyboards. "However, since you explicitly thought it appropriate to mention substance," Jasmine stated, transitioning the topic, "you also thought it fitting to bring up my personal appearance and my presence on social media platforms. First and foremost, the choices I make regarding my professional attire at work are absolutely none of your concern. I am a professional woman who dresses in a professional manner. If my clothing choices or hairstyle serve to distract you, that is fundamentally your problem, not mine," Jasmine began firmly. A segment of the audience present struggled to conceal their visible laughter. Nancy Mace's facial expression began to tighten significantly in response. When inquired about her extensive social media presence, Jasmine relentlessly continued her presentation. "Yes, I utilize it. Unlike certain members of Congress who operate as if the calendar still reads 1995, I understand that maintaining connections means reaching people where they actually are. And the simple reality is that they are online. My specific district is composed of 62% black and brown constituents. A significant portion of my constituency is young and has no intention of watching C-SPAN. However, they will encounter segments from these important hearings on Twitter or Instagram. Therefore, yes, I ensure that my message directly reaches them in their preferred spaces. That approach does not constitute a performance. It constitutes authentic representation. The hearing room was once again plunged into a profound silence. Every eye present was rigidly locked on Jasmine Crockett. Then her speaking voice underwent a significant shift, becoming distinctly more personal in nature. What profoundly bothers me about the remarks from Representative Mace, Jasmine continued, is that she directly questioned my fundamental belonging in this institution. She directly implied that I am less serious, less qualified, and less deserving of my position because of how I look or how I speak. She subtly inclined her body forward in her chair. Representative Mace, you achieved a historical milestone as the initial female graduate from the Citadel. You have frequently discussed how countless individuals doubted your capabilities, claiming a woman was unable to handle a rigorous military environment. You successfully proved all of them wrong, and that achievement is highly commendable. Therefore, I am genuinely and utterly confused as to why you would subsequently turn around and do to another woman exactly what was once inflicted upon you. That specific statement landed with profound impact. The smirk instantaneously vanished from Mace's face, replaced by a look of visible discomfort as she was caught entirely off guard by the powerful comparison. I am a black woman serving in Congress, Jasmine stated firmly. I am a trained civil rights attorney. I successfully graduated from law school with high honors. I have dedicated my entire professional career to fighting on behalf of those without a voice, and I am exceptionally skilled at my job. Therefore, when you dismiss me as being all talk, when you mock my personal appearance, and when you imply I am here merely to generate viral video segments, she continued, what you are genuinely communicating is that you do not believe I belong in this institution. And that is fundamentally not just an insult directed at me. It constitutes a profound insult to every individual who cast a vote for me and to every young black woman who dreams of one day serving her country in this place. Enthusiastic applause immediately erupted across the entire room. Even some journalists nodded their heads in silent agreement with her powerful statement. Nancy Mace remained seated, completely frozen in place, with her face noticeably red. However, Jasmine had not yet completed her presentation, not quite. She paused briefly for a precise moment, permitting her previous words to fully settle within the room before she delivered the definitive knockout blow. Since you appear so eager to discuss the concepts of substance versus performance, she stated, opening an organized folder, let us thoroughly examine your actual record. Nancy Mace visibly stiffened in response to the statement. In January, you published a social media post claiming that you were fighting to lower prescription drug costs for our senior citizens. That sounds exceptionally great in theory, except for one critical fact. When the specific legislation, the Inflation Reduction Act, came up for a vote, the very bill that would have actually accomplished that goal, you voted against it. Jasmine subsequently looked her straight in the eye with intense focus. So please inform me, Representative Mace, were you lying directly to your constituents at that time, or are you lying directly to them right now? The hearing room collectively gasped in absolute shock. Even the committee chairman appeared visibly stunned by the direct nature of the accusation. In March, Jasmine relentlessly continued her factual takedown. You tweeted publicly about your unwavering support for veterans and ensuring they receive appropriate health care. This is indeed a nice sentiment to express publicly, yet when the situation required action, you voted against the expansion of the PACT Act. This is the crucial bill providing essential health care for veterans who are exposed to toxic burn pits during their service. Therefore, I am once again forced to ask, which version of Nancy Mace should the public believe? The individual projecting an image on Twitter or the individual casting actual votes in the voting booth? Mace desperately attempted to interrupt the presentation. That is not accurate. Those bills possessed other controversial elements that necessitated— Jasmine firmly raised a hand to stop her. I have not yet completed my statement, Representative. You thought it appropriate to question my substance. Now I am questioning yours. She deliberately flipped to yet another page in her organized binder. In April, you delivered a speech focused on protecting women's rights and putting an end to discrimination. This again is a commendable public stance, yet you subsequently voted against the Equal Rights Amendment. Furthermore, you voted against important pay equity legislation and against crucial protections for women who are seeking essential reproductive health care. Therefore, you must forgive me if I am profoundly unsure as to which specific women you are actually attempting to protect with your legislative record. Each individual point that Crockett presented connected with the force of a powerful hammer. Mace's staff members were in all likelihood frantically checking their mobile devices, presumably initiating preparations for immediate damage control. You thought it appropriate to label me as being all talk, Jasmine stated firmly. However, the documented reality is that your social media presence and your actual voting record do not align with each other. You consistently publish moderate-sounding tweets, yet you subsequently vote with the far-right 90% of the time. If any individual in this room is engaged in a performance, Representative Mace, it is unequivocally you. Democrats in the chamber struggled significantly to contain their audible reactions to the statement. This did not constitute merely a clever comeback. It was a factual, meticulously structured, and devastatingly effective takedown. Subsequently, Jasmine's vocal tones softened slightly, although her profound confidence remained entirely undiminished. Please understand, I did not arrive here today with the intention of starting a personal fight, she stated. I arrived here to perform my job. However, when you choose to question my presence, my fundamental qualifications, or my right to serve my constituents, she continued, I will invariably respond, not with personal insults, but with verifiable facts. She gestured around the legislative chamber to emphasize her point. Every individual in this institution took a solemn oath to serve the American people. We did not take an oath to serve our own egos, nor to pursue viral moments, although you appear quite focused on achieving that. We are present in this institution to legislate and to represent our constituencies effectively. Finally, she turned herself directly to address Mace. I have absolutely no need to tear you down in order to lift myself up. My professional record speaks for itself. However, if you ever think it appropriate to question my competence or level of commitment again, she continued firmly, I will not hesitate to remind you and every other observer exactly why I belong in this institution. I possess the necessary receipts. I am a trained attorney. Bringing receipts is what I do. That final statement served as the definitive blow. Jasmine Crockett leaned back into her chair, appearing completely and utterly composed. Mr. Chairman, can we please return to the actual subject matter of this hearing? Certain individuals among us arrived here today to perform work, not to pick personal fights. The entire room erupted into chaos. Democrats stood up, applauding enthusiastically, and even staff members situated in the back joined in the ovation. The chairman was forced to repeatedly call for order multiple times. Nancy Mace remained seated in silence, her jaw visibly tight and her face significantly flushed. She had arrived at the hearing possessing immense confidence that she could publicly embarrass Jasmine Crockett. Instead, she had been fact-checked in real time, exposed as a hypocrite, and systematically dismantled in less than 5 minutes. The camera equipment captured every individual second of the exchange. The video segment began disseminating immediately across the internet. Within minutes, Jasmine Crockett was a prominent trending topic on Twitter. Within an hour, the video clip had accumulated millions of individual views. Nancy Mace had attempted to ridicule Crockett. Instead, Jasmine's incisive, factual reply terminated the exchange and may have inflicted long-lasting damage upon Mace's public credibility. Before the hearing itself had even concluded, the world of social media was completely ablaze with reaction. Regardless of whether it originated from Crockett's dedicated communications team or an alert viewer, the key moment was clipped and posted online within minutes. It rapidly spread like wildfire across Twitter. Jasmine Crockett ascended to become the #1 trending topic in the United States within a mere 30 minutes. The hashtag #IHaveReceipts followed closely behind. By the conclusion of the day, the video segment had been viewed more than 15 million times across various platforms. The online replies and quote tweets directed at Nancy Mace were relentless and often brutal. Progressive Voice commented, "Nancy Mace thought she'd have an easy day. Instead, Jasmine Crockett completely dismantled her. This is what happens when you underestimate black women." Political Junkie 2024 posted, "Jasmine Crockett took down Nancy Mace with facts and receipts. Never come for a lawyer unless you're fully prepared." Voting Matters stated, Crockett said, "I'm an attorney. Bringing receipts is what I do." Then proceed to expose Mace's entire voting record. Iconic Real Talk added, "Mace attacked Crockett's appearance and qualifications. Crockett responded by fact-checking her entire career. That's the difference between substance and performance." Even some conservative voices took note of the exchange. Conservative voices posted, "I'm a Republican, but Jasmine Crockett came prepared." Nancy Mace walked right into that one. You cannot question someone's record if your own doesn't hold up to scrutiny. As invariably occurs with any viral political moment, the internet meme machinery immediately swung into high gear. A prominent photo of Jasmine Crockett holding folders was captioned, "When you're a lawyer and someone comes for you unprepared." Another meme displayed Nancy Mace smirking at the beginning and looking visibly defeated at the conclusion, titled, "How It Started versus How It's Going." A still image of Jasmine stating, "I have receipts," was captioned, "Never bring feelings to a fact fight." And one final meme declared, "Underestimate me, please, I dare you." These memes flooded platforms like Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and Twitter. They were particularly popular among younger viewers who praised Crockett as an example of handling bullies with confidence and intelligence. By the evening, every major television network had covered the story. CNN reported, "Texas Democrat Jasmine Crockett goes viral after confrontation with South Carolina Republican Nancy Mace." Analysts described her performance as a masterclass in debate preparation. MSNBC noted, "Freshman Congresswoman shows how to respond to personal attacks with facts and dignity." Joy Reid characterized it as the most effective clapback in congressional history. Even Fox News covered the event, framing it as a heated exchange that highlighted partisan tensions within Congress. The Washington Post published an analysis titled, "How Jasmine Crockett Won a Debate by Being Better Prepared." The piece praised Crockett's effective strategy and criticized Mace for making the attack personal. The New York Times perhaps summarized the event best with the headline, "In an era of political theater, substance still matters." Crockett's fact-based approach stood in sharp and distinct contrast to Mace's reliance on personal attacks. That evening, Mace attempted to execute a recovery maneuver on social media. "I'll always call out hypocrisy," she posted. "Democrats talk about helping people, but vote for policies that hurt working families. That's what today was about." The replies to her post were unforgiving. "That's not what happened, and you know it. You mocked her appearance, and she destroyed you with facts. Don't attempt to rewrite history. We all watched it live." One viral reply succinctly summed up the online sentiment. "The receipts are already out there, Nancy. Just take the L." 2 days later, Mace appeared on a conservative podcast. She claimed, "The media is blowing this entire situation out of proportion, typical partisan politics." However, even the host pushed back on her defense. "Nancy, you did directly question her qualifications and her physical appearance. Did you realistically expect her to just sit there and accept that?" Mace stumbled through a defense centered on tough love and accountability, but it was clear that the confident Congresswoman from the hearing was now firmly on the defensive. Crockett did not engage in gloating. She did not need to. She simply tweeted, "I came to Congress to fight for my constituents and perform the work. I will not be bullied, dismissed, or underestimated, and I will always have receipts. Back to work." The post received over 500,000 likes and was widely shared by figures across the entire political spectrum. A week later, she appeared on The Breakfast Club with Charlemagne the God. When inquired about the exchange, she smiled and said, "I'm a trial lawyer. I've spent my career in courtrooms facing tough judges and aggressive opposing counsel. Did Nancy Mace really think a few mean comments would rattle me? I've dealt with significantly worse before my morning coffee." The host laughed, and that specific clip quickly went viral, but Jasmine relentlessly continued, shifting to a more serious tone. This was fundamentally not about winning an argument. It was about making it crystal clear that black women and young representatives in Congress deserve the same basic respect as anyone else. We did not end up in these positions by accident. We earned our seats and we're not going anywhere. The exchange between Nancy Mace and Jasmine Crockett soon evolved into a topic of discussion in political communication courses. Professors utilized it to highlight the distinct difference between personal attacks and issue-based arguments. As one political science professor from Georgetown explained to students, this was a textbook example of how personal attacks can backfire when your opponent is better prepared. Representative Mace tried to turn the debate into a matter of personality and appearance, while Representative Crockett shifted it back to policy and voting records. One strategy relies heavily on bias and emotion, while the other depends strictly on facts and evidence. Political consultants representing both major parties took close notice of the incident. Democratic strategists began actively encouraging candidates to emulate the Crockett model. They advised candidates to remain calm, rely on facts, and respond to personal attacks with substance rather than anger. On the other hand, Republican strategists quietly advised their candidates to avoid committing the Mace mistake. They warned never to question someone's appearance, qualifications, or legitimacy unless your own record can stand up to close and rigorous examination. The incident carried serious professional consequences for Nancy Mace. While her congressional seat remained safe in a strongly Republican district, her national image suffered significant damage. Mace had been positioning herself as a future party leader capable of appealing to moderates while maintaining strong MAGA support. But the viral clip made her appear unprepared, petty, and inconsistent in her views. Some of her GOP colleagues privately voiced their distinct disappointment regarding her performance. "She made us all look bad," one Republican member informed Politico. "You cannot claim to be the party of ideas and then resort to personal insults. Crockett made us seem like we don't do our homework." Moderate Republicans who had previously considered partnering with Mace on bipartisan legislation became distinctly wary. If she attacked a Democratic colleague so harshly in public, they wondered how she might treat them in private disagreements. Although her social media following increased, it did so for the wrong reasons. Many newly added followers were monitoring her account to see if she would stumble again in the future. Mace had evolved into more of a comedic punchline than a respected leader. For Jasmine Crockett, the confrontation proved to be a significant turning point in her career. Practically overnight, she went from a relatively unknown freshman lawmaker to a recognized national figure. Her fundraising efforts soared in the aftermath of the event. Within 2 weeks, her campaign received over $2 million in donations, surpassing the total she had raised in the entire prior 6 months. Contributions poured in from across the country, many accompanied by messages such as, "Thank you for speaking up, you inspire my daughter." She was soon invited to speak at prominent universities, women's conferences, and political events nationwide. Major media outlets sought exclusive interviews, and late-night shows requested her presence as a guest. More importantly, her colleagues in Congress took close notice of her capabilities. Seasoned lawmakers who had witnessed countless heated exchanges acknowledged that Crockett handled herself with rare and remarkable composure. She defended herself effectively without sounding defensive, remained strong without being unkind, and permitted the facts to speak for themselves. "That constitutes leadership," one Democratic senator remarked. "She knows who she is and does not need to tear others down to prove it." As a direct result, committee chairs began consulting her on important policy matters. Party leaders started viewing her as an individual capable of managing high-pressure situations. She had proven her competence not only to the voters but also to her professional peers. The confrontation between Nancy Mace and Jasmine Crockett represents far more than just a singular viral moment in time. It reflects key, undeniable truths about modern politics in the United States. First, the importance of preparation outweighs mere performance. Mace tried to engineer a viral clip through mockery. Crockett came ready with verifiable evidence. In today's social media-driven environment, you cannot rely solely on sound bites. You must back up your claims with hard facts. Attacking someone's personal looks, age, or right to be present is lazy politics. It might win quick approval from your supporters, but it makes you appear small. And when your opponent counters that strategy with substance, it only makes you look worse. Even in an era of alternative facts and political spin, there is real power in simply telling the truth. Jasmine Crockett did not need to insult Nancy Mace. She just cited Mace's own voting record. Jasmine Crockett was not just standing up for herself as an individual. She represented every young person, every woman of color, and everyone who has ever been told that they do not belong in the room. Her words resonated because millions have experienced the exact same kind of dismissal she faced that day. Both women should have realized that everything they said would be recorded, shared, analyzed, and remembered. Nancy Mace acted as if she were having a private exchange, while Jasmine Crockett knew she was speaking directly to millions. Months later, the confrontation still gets mentioned frequently in political conversations. Often when other lawmakers engage in arguments, commentators now ask, will this evolve into another Mace Crockett moment? Jasmine Crockett continues serving her congressional district with a significantly higher public profile. She has effectively utilized her platform to promote her policy goals and has become a mentor for young women of color interested in pursuing politics. Nancy Mace, on the other hand, has tried to move on, focusing on new issues and participating in new debates. But the viral video clip continues to follow her, seemingly at every turn. Every time she posts online, someone inevitably replies with that same video of Jasmine Crockett systematically dismantling her arguments. The two have not had another direct exchange since that day. They sit on different congressional committees and largely avoid one another. There is no public reconciliation or friendly follow-up occurring. Sometimes in politics, there are very clear winners and very clear losers, and everyone observing knows which is which. What did you think of this iconic political face-off? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Did Nancy Mace cross the line, or was Jasmine Crockett's response completely justified in your opinion? If you enjoyed this detailed breakdown of one of the most iconic political confrontations in recent memory, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss future coverage. Like this video if you think Jasmine Crockett handled herself flawlessly. Share it with someone who needs to see an example of how to respond to bullies with composure and facts. Comment below who you think Jasmine Crockett's next challenger might be. Want to see more moments exactly like this one? Explore our curated playlist featuring the most intense congressional exchanges. We include AOC versus Ted Cruz in the viral climate debate, Marjorie Taylor Greene versus Jamie Raskin, who really won that particular confrontation, and Katie Porter's legendary whiteboard takedowns. Whether you find yourself in a congressional hearing, a team meeting, or dealing with someone trying to undermine you, remember Jasmine Crockett's important lesson: stay calm and collected. Do not let emotions dictate your response to provocation. Come fully prepared. Know your facts before entering any debate. Focus on substance rather than personal insults. Let the truth speak for itself through documentation. Stand your ground firmly. You do not have to accept disrespect from anyone. Know your worth and never let anyone make you feel like you do not belong. There will always be Nancy Mace people, individuals who try to pull others down in an attempt to lift themselves up. But Jasmine Crockett proved that the strongest response is not anger. It is preparation, intelligence, and the deep confidence that comes from knowing your work. So next time someone mocks you, dismisses you, or questions your qualifications, channel your inner Jasmine Crockett. Have your facts ready, stay composed, and remind them exactly why you deserve your place. Don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our next political analysis. Which showdown should we cover next? Tell us in the comments below.